And welcome to Dear Jane. I am Scott Baker. She is Marcy Little. Marcy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
That's good. Glad that we can be together for another episode. Looking forward to today's conversation. Today's episode is brought to us by Choose Life Express. And here with a glaring endorsement of what Choose Life Express can do is Marcy Little.
Choose Life Express, much like you might be able to derive from the name, is powered by Choose Life Marketing. Our friends at Choose Life Marketing. Choose Life Express is your ready-made one-stop shop for marketing materials you can use right away. So if you don't have the time to go through a custom production of a video, for example, or you have an event coming up and you don't have time to develop out all of the materials, Choose Life Express can help. They have ready-made, ready-to-deploy packages for you, both videos, event packages, social media. Check them out, chooselifeexpress.com, powered by Choose Life Marketing. They will help you with your pro-life events and pro-life fundraising, pro-life marketing, all that good stuff.
All right. Very good. Cool. So we've all heard of sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants, right? We get a lot of talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
What about sanctuary cities for the unborn? That's a thing. If you didn't know, that's a thing. And Mark Lee Dickson is way involved in that. He's been working with cities all around the country, and he is the director of the Right to Life in East Texas, but he's also founder of Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn initiative. Mark, thanks for joining us here on Dear Jane. Appreciate it.
Hey, great to be here.
Hey, so in practical terms, what does it mean for a city to be a sanctuary city for the unborn?
Well, a sanctuary city for the unborn is a city that has said that they do not want abortion in their backyard in any way. And of course, that looks differently in a post road Texas than it does a Nebraska or an Illinois or New Mexico. But it's the furthest that the city can do to stand for life.
So what does that look like in practical terms? Some people in a city say, we don't want abortion here because we realize what abortion actually is. What are the steps that they would need to take to become a sanctuary city for the unborn?
So what we encourage people to do is we encourage them to go to the Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn website at sanctuarycitiesfortheunborn.com. They sign an online petition, and that really gives us a good idea of who they are, why they want to see abortion outlawed. And across America, the answers are typically the same. They want to see abortion outlawed because they see abortion as murder, and they see abortion as against God's law. And at that point, when people are signing the online petitions, we connect with them and we plan out what it's going to take. Every city's differently. Every city, say a city of a population of 250, that's going to be treated as differently than a city with a population of over 100,000. And so we work with churches, we work with conservative groups, and we devise a plan that will really work for their community. And we don't do resolutions, which are statements, but we do ordinances, which are laws, because we want to do everything that we can to nip this in the bud as we work towards an abortion-free America.
So how do those city laws and ordinances interface with county or state laws?
Well, that's a great question. So here in Texas, a lot of people say, well, why are you still doing work in Texas when abortion's completely outlawed? And we actually put into law, in the Heartbeat Act, we put a provision in there that supports cities and counties going further in restricting abortion. That allows us to close some of the loopholes that we knew would come up as things progress. And we didn't want to wait around till the next legislative session. We wanted to be able to address it immediately. And so places like Amarillo right now, we are moving forward an initiative where the ordinance we're looking at here, it prohibits abortion trafficking. That is the taking of pregnant mothers across state lines for the purpose of abortion. We know in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and in Wichita, Kansas, the parking lots are full of cars with Texas license plates that women are going to Kansas and New Mexico for abortions. And so we're doing everything we can to nip that in the bud. We're also realizing that these waste management companies, what they're doing, they're going to places like Kansas and New Mexico and even California, picking up this abortion waste and bringing it back to Texas, of all places, disposing it of that abortion waste here on Texas soil. And so places throughout Texas, they don't want a part of that. And so this allows us to address those issues. And every time we write an ordinance, we always make sure it's in line with the laws of that state. And every state that we've seen, there's something that we can do to stand for life and move the ball forward. In places like Illinois and New Mexico and other states like that, it's utilizing the Comstock Act that was passed in 1873 by Congress. Biden administration is not going to enforce it, but that doesn't mean that local cities and counties can't say that they're going to recognize those federal laws and hold their citizens to them.
I was going to ask you to talk about the Comstock Act because, as you know, I'm here in Colorado and we're very blue here. Our state legislature saw you coming from a mile away, and so we passed a law last year changing the zoning laws basically to say no, cities and counties can't restrict abortion clinics from opening up, yada yada. Federal law trumps state law. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the Comstock Act actually says and how that applies to states like Colorado, where our state legislature is a little crazy?
Absolutely. And, we had tried this in Pueblo and we actually got some traction. It passed first reading. And then, of course, the second reading is where it died. But we're very appreciative for that community. We had an interest meeting there that was scheduled, and I think it was like less than 5 days. We had this meeting scheduled, and over 600 people showed up to it. It was fantastic. People there are pro-life. They want to stand up. The Comstock Act, what it does in regards to abortion, it addresses many items, but specifically on abortion, it prohibits the mailing and receiving of abortion-inducing drugs and abortion paraphernalia. So I'm talking about 18 U.S.C. 1461 and 1462. And so that's what it addresses. And so if we really think about that, every abortion facility in America, whether we're talking about California or Colorado or Nebraska or Kansas, they're in violation of the Comstock Act because they are receiving in the mail abortion-inducing drugs and abortion paraphernalia. And so if we were to have an administration that would actually enforce the Comstock Act, then we could see every abortion facility in America shut down, which, man, what a great day that would be.
Or enforce immigration law or enforce. Oh, no, wait. We're a pro-life podcast. We got to stay focused. So what happens if, all right, so say there's a citizen, oh, yeah, I like this. I want my city to do this. And they actually get a receptive city council. And in a minute, I want to talk about how crazy some city councils can be, but we'll talk about that in a second. And so, yeah, the council's on board, but maybe there's already like a clinic in town or something. What happens to facilities that may already exist?
So in Lubbock, Texas, we had that situation. It was 2020, and Planned Parenthood announced that they were opening up shop in Lubbock, Texas. The citizens of Lubbock did not want Planned Parenthood there. And so up to that point, cities had passed ordinances outlawing abortion, but no abortion facility was there. So it was a preventative measure. And so we went head to head with trying to pass an ordinance before Planned Parenthood opened up. Planned Parenthood opened up, and we ended up having an ordinance on the ballot in May of 2021. It passed. May 1st of 2021 ended up being 62 to 38% in favor of the ordinance. And so Planned Parenthood, they didn't know what to do. The ordinance would go in effect June 1 of 2021. And so they filed a lawsuit. I believe it was May 17th, somewhere around there. And that lawsuit lasted a couple of weeks. Went for Judge Hendricks in federal district court. And he's asked the Attorney General to weigh in on it. And he said he would render his decision as soon as possible. June 1 rolled around. The law went into effect. And Planned Parenthood that morning announced that they would no longer be doing abortions there in Lubbock because of that ordinance. Later that day, Judge Hendricks ruled in a 50-page ruling that Planned Parenthood had sued the wrong entity, the wrong person. They sued the city of Lubbock. And the way that the ordinance was written, the city of Lubbock didn't enforce the ordinance. It was enforced by private citizens. And so this was a massive victory. The first time in history under Roe v. Wade that an abortion ban was passed, that Planned Parenthood sued, the law went into effect, and the abortion industry complied, and we won. And so, of course, that was a precursor to the Texas Heartbeat Act. And so in May of 2021, that's when Governor Abbott signed the Texas Heartbeat Act. It was going to go in effect September 1. So what did the abortion industry do? They ended up suing anyone they could think of to prevent this law from going into effect. They saw with Lubbock the problem that this was going to be a challenge for them. And so I was the only private citizen that was sued over the Texas Heartbeat Act. Every abortion industry in Texas pretty much ended up bringing that suit. It was fast-tracked to the Supreme Court of the United States, and we saw all 9 justices agreed the case against me should be dismissed. We saw a massive victory, and of course that was a precursor to seeing the great victory that we saw in Dobbs v. Jackson. And so, so far, this private enforcement mechanism has worked really well with the Heartbeat Act and with these sanctuary city ordinances, which is why we're using it to go as far as we possibly can go. We want to bring those abortionists into the state of Texas to let them go before our courts. We want to do everything that we can to end abortion in America, and that's why, like, this Amarillo ordinance prohibits abortions performed on residents of Amarillo, even if they go to Colorado or New Mexico, these other places. That we're going as far as we possibly can go.
That's awesome. That's quite the badge of honor to say that you were sued by the abortion industries in Texas. What was that like? Were you part of going before the Supreme Court? Talk to us about what it was like to be sued by the abortion industry.
Well, I've been sued a lot now. So I was sued for saying abortion is murder, and that the abortion industry was involved in the murder of innocent children, and that there were criminal organizations based on the pre-Roe statutes, which had never been repealed. And so they don't like me. And they're always, why is everyone always picking on me, And so it ended up becoming a badge of honor. Great joy. In fact, and I had fun with it too. My attorney had to get on to me a little bit for having too much fun with it. I made a sign that said "Ready to be served," and I was it had a little heart on it. I was standing outside of the abortion facility, and it's a good photo shoot. Process server was going all over Texas trying to find me, but I wasn't going to just sit and stop everything I was doing. We got cities where they want to outlaw abortion. I'm not going to stop that. I'm going here, there, and everywhere. And a process server would call me up, and they would say, "Mr. Dickson, are you currently in this city or that city?" I'm like, "No, I'm actually over 1,000 miles away in Ohio, or I'm in California, or I'm in, Timbuktu, wherever." And they didn't like that, but I was always communicated where I was. They just, those process servers, they need some rocket packs or something. Kind of hard to track down sometimes.
So obviously, I think it's a great idea. One of the challenges, and I don't know about you guys, one of the challenges I can think of, and I know, Marcy, you're politically involved, but when I think of city councils, how should I put this? Some of the most zealous, crazy, extremist, not so bright people. I want to be, I don't want to paint with a broad brush here, right? But in my experience, they're serving on the city council. And so getting these people to understand or trying to convince them, I mean, there are some, I don't know, maybe it's just where I live, but man, we've got some crusaders, left crusaders. Well, for example, right here with the town I'm in right now, the state is bright red, but this town is as blue can be. And we have got, well, it's as blue as our mayor's hair. So that's true. And so I'm just telling you, we've got some crusaders on the city council, and that's where they go. And so getting these people on board with anything like this, I would think would be a tall order.
Well, with every city, it's a challenge. Every body of government matters. There's a whole lot of cities here in America, and 76% of those cities are less than 5,000 people. 42% of that, less than 42% of that is less than 500 people in those cities. And every city matters. Majority of cities in America are conservative areas, but for any kind of law, you got to have a majority of the council to pass that ordinance. And so we do see challenges. But what I found to be most beneficial is really just to hit the issue straight on. Do the people that you've elected to office, do they represent your beliefs and values? Do they see the world in the same way that you do? Amos 5:15 says to hate evil, to love good, and to establish justice within the city gate. And perhaps the Lord, the God of hosts, be gracious on the remnant of Joseph. And so when I saw that passage, things lit up for me. For so long, I'd been told in churches and in the public square that if you want to get something done on this issue or any other important issue, you do it at your state capital or nation's capital. Well, that's just not what I was seeing in the Word of God. The Word of God says to hate evil, love good, establish justice within the city gates, and perhaps the Lord, the God of hosts, be gracious on the remnant of Joseph. It doesn't say hate evil, love good, and just worry about the roads and other items, not any of these big issues. No, we're supposed to care if there's children being murdered in our community, or if there are abortion-inducing drugs being shipped in by the mail into our communities. That is a concern. That we've got to address that issue, just like we would address any other issue of great concern. I remember one time there was one community that I saw on the news about how they were seeing a lot of this synthetic marijuana showing up at gas stations. Well, what did the city do? They decided, hey, we got to crack down on this. We've got to pass an ordinance uh, that pushes back on this synthetic marijuana that's being sold there at gas stations. And so why did they do that? They did that to protect their community, because what they're doing, they're hating evil, loving good, establishing justice. And that's what we got to do. It doesn't matter if we are in Amarillo, Texas, or if we're in Clarendon or Munster, Texas, or Post Falls, Idaho. Every single city, this has to be done. And if you don't have the leaders for that, man, this is a really an identifier. So often, I think we elect people because maybe they throw an extra, steak on the grill, and oh, this is a nice person. Well, we don't need to elect people because they're nice. We need to elect people because their beliefs and values line up with ours.
Well said. And for those of you playing the Dear Jane home version, if you had a citation of Amos on your card, you can mark that off right there. That is good stuff. How often do you hear Amos quoted? That's really good. So, Mark, where are some of these cities? And not just Texas. I mean, you're starting to spread out pretty good.
Absolutely. So right now we have 69 cities and 7 counties across 7 states that have passed ordinances prohibiting abortion to the fullest extent that they can. Some of those ordinances are explicit abortion ban. Most of those ordinances are explicit abortion bans. Some are what we call de facto abortion bans, which basically are simply requiring compliance to the Comstock Act. But this is something, so the ones that we have passed, places like Lubbock, Texas, Abilene, Texas, Odessa, Texas, Lebanon, Ohio, Hayes Center, Nebraska, Blue Hill, Nebraska. We passed this in Clovis, New Mexico, and Hobbs, New Mexico. We passed this in so many places out there. And the places we're working on now, can't say too much on some of the ones outside of Texas, but the ones in Texas I can say are like Amarillo. That's common knowledge. Tonight, City Council in Clarendon, Texas will be voting, but we just had a vote in Munster, Texas. They passed it on Monday night. This is something that we're continuing along with, and it's a battle. Even here in Texas still, we've got outside interests that are coming in trying to change our state. Of course, George Soros is behind that, unfortunately. And the Biden administration, they want abortion access in every single zip code. And this is a great opportunity to push back and say, look, Texas is not for sale. We don't want the culture to change here and go back to what it was. We want to do our part to help end abortion in America. And that's what this is about. This is about the end of abortion in America. At one point, we had slave states and we had free states. And no one today would look back and say, man, that was a great idea. No. And we're going to be in this world where one day abortion will be outlawed in America. And on that day, people are going to be looking back and they're going to say, man, I can't believe that people thought it was a good idea for there to be abortion states and non-abortion states. All this, when people say, oh, we should leave it to the states, oh, that we tried that before with slavery. Didn't work. And it's not going to work with abortion either.
Are you concerned? So, a lot of these city ordinances are based on the fact that the Comstock Act exists. And I ask this question knowing how slow Congress is to do anything. But are you concerned about the future of the Comstock Act? Like Congress working to reverse that in any way? What's the future of the Comstock Act, do you think?
Well, it is the talk of the town. This is something that, since, especially with the most recent Supreme Court case, the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine versus the FDA, uh, the the highlight, I believe, that of that case, that what we had going for us, in that when they started talking about the Comstock Act, when Alito and Thomas were really asking the questions that they were, and we were hearing the responses. Uh, this is the greatest tool that we have in our toolbox to end abortion in America like that. We don't have to rely upon the votes in Congress to see this through. All we really need to do is make sure that this is enforced. And uh, now, what's concerning, we got to be careful about those legislators that hate the Comstock Act. We've got to make sure that we have people in office that represent our beliefs and values and aren't going to repeal the Comstock Act. And so it causes us to be aware. It causes us to really know where people stand on that issue. It also causes us to really be mindful of it's not just red versus blue here. There are Republican legislators that we cannot trust on this issue, and we need to get them out. There's one in particular I'm thinking of in North Carolina that she needs to go, and she
What
made a
reason do they
comment.
normally give? Those Republicans?
Well, I mean, you got pretty much a pro-abortion Republican in North Carolina that is
Uh,
really pushing. She's against the Comstock Act, and so we've got
huh.
to factor that in. We've got to
Hmm.
really, there are people in this world who do not want abortion bans, and they're in the ears of some people that needs to be more careful with their statements at times. And this week, for instance, we've seen statements from Carrie Lake and Donald J. Trump on the uh, Arizona law that Supreme Court ruling there. It's a great ruling, and that should have been praised by Carrie Lake and Donald J. Trump. States' rights, right? You would think. Uh, but, it was criticized, and we need to do everything we can to remind people like Carrie Lake and Donald J. Trump that, look, these laws that protect innocent human beings made in the image of God, they're good. This is praiseworthy. And sometimes these people, I think, get bad advice from some of their advisors, and we've just got to be the louder voice. We've got to. I think we are the majority, the pro-life community. I think I don't buy into this idea that majority of America is pro-abortion. I don't buy that. Everywhere I go, I see the pushback in certain places, but there's way more of us than them. And just as we saw when Roe v. Wade was coming into existence back then, I wasn't alive, but from what I've read, of course the statistics were being created, and the results were being tailored to what they wanted it to be, the messaging. There is a individual who has moved from Brooklyn, New York to Amarillo, Texas, who is the executive director of Women's March. Uh, why did she move to Amarillo 3 years ago? She moved to Amarillo 3 years ago, funded by Soros and supported by the Biden administration, to change the culture of Texas. Because if we lose one of our golden cities in West Texas, we could lose Texas as a whole. And so there is a war going on. And what is she saying? She is saying, oh, the majority of the people here are against these kind of abortion bans. That's not true. she's making statements, trying to bring that reality into existence, and we've just got to call people out. We are the majority here, I believe, and we need to keep on fighting. And one day we're going to wake up in an abortion-free America, but we're not going to get to that point if we just cave to the other side. And that's my encouragement to people like Carrie Lake and Donald J. Trump, that pro-life is not a losing issue. It's a winning issue. You just got to know how to talk about it. Greg Abbott, Governor Abbott here in Texas, when he got some pushback over the Texas Heartbeat Act, people said, look, there's no exception for rape. Well, what did Governor Abbott say? He said, well, I believe in giving the rapist the death penalty, not the unborn child. He knew how to talk about it. He pushed back that we've got to treat unborn children as what they really are, innocent human beings made in the image of God. They don't deserve to be punished for other people's sins.
I think you bring up a really... Oh, go ahead, Scott.
No, you go ahead. Ladies first.
Oh, thank you very much. I think it's interesting you bring up Governor Abbott, because I think people are afraid to talk about it. They don't know how to talk about it well. And on the right, we've bought into this mindset that a pro-life position is a liability for us.
Yep.
And we've just got to flip that and make
Yep.
the extreme positions on abortion a liability to the left, because it should be. They espouse and promote the most radical, extreme policies when it comes to abortion. And I just think at the city level, at the county level, at every level, we've got to wake up to the fact that they're not content to let this just be a states' rights issue. They want to fight back at every level. And are we willing to fight at every level for the sake of the unborn?
Well, here's my theory, and see what you guys think. Some of this is our fault. Pro-life, it's our own fault. And what I'm talking about is these politicians believe that the issue is a loser politically, right? So that's why they get all skittish and they don't stand firm when it comes to the issue. And the reason they believe that is because we have not supported them strongly enough. And one of the traps that we always fall into that drives me crazy is if the language that we're voting on, if it isn't exactly the language that I want, then I'm not going to go vote for it. I'm not going to support it. If it's not precisely the language that I want, or if this candidate doesn't agree with me 100%, I'm not going to support him. Shame on us. Shame on us, especially when you consider what the alternative is, and we're seeing it now. And so I think some of that blame lies with us, because you look at some of the data, you could say, well, you know what? I understand why they feel that way. So yeah, I think you're right, and I think there are reasons that they feel the way they do. We have just got to turn around, and one of the first things we can do is start showing up and supporting these pro-life initiatives and pro-life candidates when they do step up.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, too, I hear on a regular basis is this idea that when this is on the ballot, we lose all the time. And that's not true either. Because in the local arena, we've had that ballot initiative in Lubbock and Abilene and San Angelo and Athens, Texas, and Plainview, Texas, and several cities throughout Nebraska, like Hershey and some others. And what we've seen there, we've seen people go to the polls and stand for life. Those elections are relevant. And out of the ones I've done, which over 10 of them, we've won. Majority of them we've won, we've lost one. And the one that we lost was a surprising, spot for us. It was in a county in Nebraska, Frontier County, 85% Trump vote. The city was Curtis, Nebraska, population 850. And we got 29% of the vote. In fact, when I heard the results, I said, we got a victory, because I was thinking that we were the other number. And then I realized, no, we lost. We only got 29% in favor of the ordinance. And I was like, what happened? Well, what happened in that community was misinformation. And we have to be careful. The misinformation machine, if we don't address the objections that come up sufficiently, we can lose. And in a very pro-life place, we can lose. So what happened in Curtis, Nebraska? You had the local newspaper that was not publishing anything that we wanted it to publish. They were running the information from the opposition, and we had, and the editor of that paper ran the local bar. It's not a good combination. They were good friends with the one over the local EMS. And it was a college town, even though it's 850 people. There was an agriculture college there with some liberal professors. It was the perfect storm. And we ended up, we couldn't compete with that because we didn't have a good handle on the news sources, that our voice wasn't really getting out there. And that puts another thing out there that we need to be thinking about. We need to care about local media.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that our voice is being truly represented. And I would encourage everyone that if they're in a community and there's some discussion about a newspaper being up for sale, well, maybe the Lord is calling some people that are listening and watching this video, this show, to service by taking over a local newspaper and making sure that the conservative voice is accurately represented and that it's not being suppressed. And that's what we're seeing across the board. We need more conservative news outlets. People ask me, don't you think we have enough? No, we need more.
Just balanced would be wonderful, that's exactly right. That is happening in rural Nebraska. That means it's happening everywhere. If they've gotten to that point, that's pretty scary. So if people are interested in maybe having this happen in their city and or county, what should they do? How would they could obviously go to the website. How would they begin this process in their community?
Well, we always encourage them not to show up to city council and call their city council to pass an ordinance, because what the city attorney and city manager will say, or we can't do this, or and then they'll make some kind of statement. It'll become a pride issue and they don't want to go backwards. The best way to do this is for them to start with going to the website, signing an online petition, and then when there's quite a few people that are signed up there, obviously if there's one person that signed up in a city of 100,000 people, we're going to need some more signatures before we go out there and we draft an ordinance. And what we do is we are willing to draft an ordinance that specifically fits that city at that time and help that process move forward. We'll even provide a letter with that ordinance that says if there's any litigation that comes as a result from the passage of that ordinance, that my attorney is willing to represent that city or county at no cost to the city, the county, and the taxpayers. And so we're very careful about doing this. We've written over 100 of these. We've seen over 75 of these passed throughout America. We are the leading experts on this. We'll come there personally. We'll do an interest meeting at a church, but we don't go before a city council or a county commission, commissioner's court, unless there's at least one person in that leadership that is ready to move it forward. So there's a lot of meetings behind the scenes. There's a lot of making sure all the churches are on board. They understand things. And when we move things forward, we're thinking that we got a shot for victory. What we don't want is to move something forward that is going to fail, because those losses, it hurts the movement.
Yeah.
And there is a way to lose and win at the same time. This issue does sometimes, all the time, it puts people on the spot, and you really do hear where they stand on these issues. And a lot of times, people have seen, because of how elected officials have voted on these issues, they've used their votes against this ordinance to get those people out of office, get new people into office. That's how we got conservative majority in Odessa, Texas. Because it was a 2-year process. We cleaned house. And there was people that were not supportive of this initiative. And now we've got a mayor of Odessa that is so strong, a council that is standing up for what is right, and they're not playing games. In fact, the mayor of Odessa, he made a declaration saying that Jesus Christ is Lord of Odessa. And someone came along and they said, well, Mayor Javier Hoven, what if someone has a problem with that? And Mayor Hoven very calmly said, well, if they have a problem with that, they can take it up with the Lord of Odessa. His name is Jesus Christ.
There you go. It's pretty cut and dry, it sounds like to me. So, but I don't want to gloss over this point. If someone is listening and they're interested, do not go to your city council and say, hey, you ought to do this. That's going to be so counterproductive. Don't do that. And really, I wouldn't even if you've identified maybe somebody on your council who you think is maybe a friendly, I wouldn't even do that. I would contact Mark first, contact some people who have done this, because it is a process. It's a marathon. So don't just go out there guns ablazing and start, screaming and yelling and saying, do this. I mean, I would strongly encourage people to visit the website, sanctuarysitiesfortheunborn.com, get in touch with Mark, and then go through the process. It takes some time, but there's a right way to do it, and then it can get done.
Another thing, too,
yeah,
worth adding is that city council members, we've had situations where council members have signed the online petition saying, I'm a council member, I'm a mayor of such and such city. We want to see this in our community. Well, sometimes that's happened, and, within a week, we get it on the agenda and it happens. And sometimes it takes longer. But if you're an elected official and you're listening to this, watching this, and you're saying, man, I want to do this, then make sure when you reach out to us, let us know, that you are an elected official, and that does tend to move.
Very good. The website, once again, is Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn. Mark, really appreciate you joining us here today. This is good stuff. And I would encourage people, if they want to do this, and again, it's not just limited to Texas. There's more and more states that are being involved in this. Maybe something in Colorado there, Marcy.
I know. I keep thinking about it for Colorado. The thing I love about all of this is it underscores, and you mentioned this earlier, Mark, how much power and influence people have on a local level that they don't have at a national level. We have the power to impact who sits on our city council, who sits on our county commissioner board. even if it takes a little while to clean house and to change up some of the leadership there, this feels doable in a way that I called my congressman and he's not
Yeah,
listening to
yeah,
me,
yeah.
or
Yep,
because it
yep.
is in your backyard. So I encourage people to check it out. We have been having conversations in Colorado, so would love to make it happen here too.
All right. Mark, once again, thank you for joining us. Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn.com. Thanks for listening to Dear Jane today. For Marcy Little, I'm Scott Baker. Thanks for listening to Dear Jane. Don't forget to subscribe. Of course, you can find us on all your podcast platforms of choice. Don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram. On behalf of Marcy Little, I'm Scott Baker. Thanks for listening.